Okay, let me talk about how I got started in making cakes in Australia. In Germany, my grandfather was getting old, and he had a cafe in town in Freiburg, and a konditorei, and a pastry shop. Um, and I offered at one point, before I went to Australia, I said, "Look, I'll run the cafe for you." "Oh, no, 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 you can't do that. No, it's no way in the world," and so on. Okay, fair enough. So anyway, I got to Australia, and I wasn't thinking of making cakes. I had my job. I think at the time, yeah, I had my job at the Opera House. I was quite happy doing things, um, and I, a friend of mine who was living in a big place, I'll tell you about later. He was a waiter, but a German waiter. So in other words, he was educated, he had an apprenticeship, and went through the apprenticeship as a waiter. So he was a fully skilled waiter, and he was working in a pretty high profile restaurant, like in I think it was a German restaurant. Anyhow, so but he had a birthday party coming up, and in the house where we're living at the time, and I'll talk about that later, there were a lot of Germans. And so he figured out, he said, "Why don't you make a Black Forest cake?" And I said, "I never made a freaking cake in my life. I have got no idea what to do. I know how to eat that stuff, but I have no idea how to make it." So anyway, he insisted, and I thought, "Oh, okay, I'll try it." I got a cookbook out, and I started looking around in it and stuff like that, and it was kind of okay. I just tried. So I tried to make a sponge, and it came out like this, about that big and rock solid and stuff like that. So that wasn't it. So I tried it 2 or 3 times, and I mean, mind you, I ate it, but it was kind of not a good. I mean, I couldn't offer it to anybody else, of course. Anyway, so, and the sponge is supposed to be about that way, not that way. Anyway, so at some point I decided to call my grandfather and ask him what to do. So we had a few conversations back and forth on a few mornings or evenings, whatever, I can't remember. It was mornings, yeah. And it didn't work. I couldn't do it. And then one day he said, "Well, don't you have ready mixes, like in a box, where you just kind of add water and whatever else, eggs and stuff, and you have a sponge?" I said, "I don't know. I'll have a look." So I went and had a look, and lo and behold, there it was. So eventually I got, with this ready mixes, I got a sponge together, and it was good. So now the next hard thing was, getting sour cherries, because I had no idea what they were called. So I went from one shop, delicatessen, to another delicatessen, and said, "I want some cherries, but not the sweet cherries, the other kind of cherries." And they all looked at me as if I'm somehow stupid. No idea. No idea. So then I went to Davy Jones in town, and there was this woman behind the cheese counter. She was German. And so she said, "Oh, what you're looking for is sour cherries." Oh, shit. Of course, okay. So, but I had no idea. I mean, it's the same as in German, but I didn't. So I went, and of course, then I saw them everywhere. They had morello cherries, sour cherries, whatever. So I got some of those. I've got the cream, I got the sour cherries, I got the raspberry jam. I just had to make some custard, and I'm done. So okay, I did the first Black Forest cake. It was okay, but it wasn't the best. I mean, it was tasted okay, but because it was cream and stuff like that. But then I got better and better and better after a while, and then one day he said, "Well, why don't you kind of bring the cake in?" When I made another one, because I could go to no birthday party anymore without making this cake. So he said, "Well, why don't you bring it into the restaurant and see if they want to buy it?" "Oh, okay, why not? I've got time, So I mean, I was at the Opera House. I was working, I think, from 3 o'clock in the afternoon to midnight, so I had all morning to do nothing. Okay, so I did that, and they said, "Yeah, okay, we'll take it," and they paid the price, because I put my price pretty high, because I said, "Well, if I have to do it, then I want to make it worthwhile for me." So I put the price pretty high at the time, and they took it. And so was one restaurant, and then I got another restaurant. So I had about 5 or 6 restaurants at the time, and that's how I got into cake making. It was kind of one thing led to another, and yeah, so it was fun, and I made it a lot of times. I made it from home. The funny thing was, we lived at some point. I moved in this Susie and Bruce, and we lived in a house, 3-bedroom house, and the kitchen was a narrow kitchen. You know, it was just about 6 feet, 8 feet, maybe 8 feet wide. A counter in there, and then on one side was the oven on a pedestal, and the stove next to it, and but the oven door didn't close properly, so I couldn't. When I was making the sponges, I need to be the door needs to be closed to get the proper heat. So I put a piece of wood between that and the wall on the other side, and so everybody walking in the kitchen had to always duck under the piece of wood which held the door of the oven closed. So that was one of the experiences we had in there. Yeah, so that was fun, you know. So at the time it was sometimes work, but yeah, it was good fun. Yeah, okay, that's about it.